Welcome to Elevate Women in Tech podcast series. I'm Kelly Kwarteng, founder of Halzac and host of the Elevate Show. Our mission is to elevate women and girls in tech from the classroom to the boardroom. Today's episode is sponsored by BCS, the Chartered Institute for IT. BCS is the professional body for the tech sector. They're on a mission to build a trusted profession that can steer technology on a safe path and take on big challenges facing the world today. They know that every time a girl drops computing at GCSE or a female worker switches her career in tech to another path, it's a major blow to the profession and our collective potential. That's why BCS is using the power of their global community to bring about real change, reaching out across diverse communities, addressing biases, celebrating role models, supporting skills development and career opportunities. When EDI in tech is the norm in every lecture theatre, dev team and board meeting, that's when we unlock a profession that takes us into a fairer digital future. If you're a student, teacher, working in tech or a leader in tech, join forces with BCS and let's make the vision a reality. To find out more about the work BCS is doing in the sector and how to join them on their mission, go to bcs.org/bring-it-on. Welcome to Elevate Women in Tech podcast series. I'm your host, Kelly Kwarteng, and today we're exploring professional standards in technology and the role of chartered status in our industry. Before we begin, I'm delighted to share that this episode is brought to you by BCS, the Chartered Institute of IT, whose mission is to promote excellence in technology, perfectly aligns with today's discussion. Now I'm honoured to welcome our distinguished guest, Professor Liz Bacon, whose expertise will help us understand the transformative impact of professional recognition within the tech industry. Liz, it's an absolute honour to have you with us today, and thank you for being part of the episode.
You're welcome. Delighted to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Perfect. Well, we'll start as I normally do. I think, there's no better person to introduce themselves than the guests that I have on board. So to get us started, would you be able to introduce yourself to our listeners and tell us a bit about your journey in technology?
Thank you. So my name is Liz Bacon and my current role is Principal and Vice Chancellor of Abertay University here in Dundee in Scotland. So my tech journey started a long time ago in my late teens. And at that time, computers had really only just about arrived in school. So I didn't really know anything about them. At that time, my interest was very much in the science field. And how I started in tech was that I went to a careers evening and I was told that I needed to have a PhD in science to work in industry. And I didn't even know what one of those was. Definitely not wanting to spend too many more years in education, I decided to look at other careers, and computing sounded quite interesting. So my parents sent me on a short course at a local college to learn how to program in BASIC and see if I liked it, and I did. I'd always loved solving logic problems at school. The more difficult and more complex, the better. And although computing has a tremendous range of careers in it, I really took programming. It just fascinated me. And I have to say that's really still where my heart is. But in those days, only about 5% of people went to university. So it kind of wasn't the norm. And I was keen to train quickly and start work. So eventually I applied for a 2-year H&D program rather than a degree program. And having done the first year of the H&D and come top in the class, I was offered a transfer to the second year of the degree and took it and really enjoyed the course and realised that obviously that higher education was actually very different to studying in school. My third year was a sandwich placement and I was very privileged to work at CERN in Geneva, which was just an amazing experience I'll never forget. But that also really opened my eyes to the power of computing in those days. And then just to try and complete the story, in my final year, I was nagged by staff to do a PhD, which at the time I had no desire to do and still really wasn't sure what one was. But I was persuaded and chose the topic of artificial intelligence. And that kind of led to my career in academia, which has been wonderful. So bizarrely, I did end up doing that PhD, but just in a different subject. And then in my early years as an academic, I think I taught pretty much every subject in our computer science degree. But of course, as you move into management, you kind of do less hands-on, but that passion for technology has just never left me. So I spent also a lot of my career trying to encourage more women into computing and STEM subjects. And it's good to see the dial shifting a bit when nothing really changed for a long time. But I think we still have a long way to go to get, representative diversity in all its forms at all levels of the tech industry. But of course, we're now in the area of generative AI. I'm absolutely fascinated by what it can do and how I think it's going to transform the world, including my own world of higher education. But of course, you have to recognize the amazing technology also comes with huge challenges as well, which need to be addressed. But as a leader, I think, having some understanding of technology in this era is really a valuable skill. Although I'm not sure my IT team would agree with me, as I probably ask too many questions and offer too many opinions. But I do think it's important to help understand how it's going to change your particular industry and drive the vision for your organisation.
What an inspiring journey that you've had. Your step into technology and that journey that you went on within your educational journey, and then where you are today. And I think it's great how you role model for women in tech, and particularly women and girls looking to advance in the education space from a computer science perspective as well. Because I'd agree with you, we are starting to see that shift. We are starting to see that dial move, but we've just got to try and work on how do we get it to go more quickly and start to see that real movement then that we need to see within the wider tech industry. So thank you very much for sharing that with us. You've obviously had a really fascinating journey through academia, and obviously you've been within the academia world for a very long time. Could you tell us a bit more about your involvement with BCS, how that began, and what motivated you to take on such a significant voluntary role, including becoming their president?
So, absolutely. So, in higher education, I was encouraged to become a student member of the BCS, and I think most students did at that time. And then when I graduated, I decided to continue that membership because I felt that professional recognition was really important. I think my external engagement outside of academia largely began with a member of staff at the University of Greenwich, where I spent most of my career. And I'd just like to name her Pam Morton. And she encouraged me to take on external roles as an early career academic. And I was actually still quite a shy person and lacked confidence at that time. So I resisted a little, but in the nicest way possible. Pam wasn't someone to take no for an answer. And from that, I'm very grateful, because when I sort of, started to take on these roles, I really enjoyed the challenge and I learned so much. And I think it massively built my confidence up. So, having been encouraged to take those first steps, I did take on a wide variety of roles in my career. For example, I was advisor to European Commission on e-skills. I became the communications officer for PICCOM, the Parliamentary All-Party IT Committee, which involved, working with others to produce briefings for MPs on technology topics. And I got a whole range of quality assurance roles in Europe, and that took me to places like Estonia, Lithuania, Kazakhstan, Russia. So it's kind of been an amazing experience that she launched. But back to BCS, it was probably in about the mid 2000s when a couple of colleagues just encouraged me to apply to become a BCS council member, which I did and was gratefully elected. Slightly later, I became chair of the Council of Professors of Heads Computing for all UK universities. And then about 2010, those two things sort of came together. We were trying to work together, BCS and CPHC. And then with a few other colleagues, what we did was we set up the BCS Academy of Computing, and I became its inaugural chair. That sort of resulted in me joining the BCS trustee board and then eventually becoming president, which I was really honoured and humbled to do so. And that was also an absolutely amazing experience.
I mean, that journey that you had, some of those roles, some of that advisory that you've given, I think this exemplifies how important a role that you've played in supporting the tech industry over your career. I think in terms of voluntary roles, for anyone that's listening in, and obviously you mentioned how you was, I suppose, mentored by Pam to kind of take that step forward to help build your own confidence. What advice would you give, or how do you think being involved in volunteering roles, such as you mentioned some of the stuff that you've done, but obviously you've been the trustee and director at Bletchley Park Trust as well, through to international accreditations. But how do you think that taking on voluntary roles can help technology professionals really leverage their own situation to help advance their own careers?
Yeah, I think voluntary positions can really expose you to situations and learning that you might not otherwise experience at all, or until you're perhaps in a more senior position in your own organization. But I also think that experience can be invaluable in actually helping you to go to get those senior positions if that's your ambition. But it just provides unique opportunities and experience and a different perspective. But even if your ambition isn't promotion, it's still just an amazing learning experience to help another organization or body to achieve its goals. So you're offering them your unique perspective, and of course potentially learning about a business that's completely different to the one you're familiar with. And I just think it's really invaluable at any stage of your career. It can just give you a different lens through which to see things. So perhaps I can offer up just a few examples of what I learned before I used the knowledge in my own career. So just sharing or being a member of a governing body, such as when I was, trustee or chair for BCS, that can first of all help you understand the difference between what a governing body does and what an executive does. And that's something that is commonly misunderstood. So that volunteering experience has certainly helped me as a principal and vice chancellor of a university, obviously now being on the executive side of the fence. I think another one I'd offer up is the example of fundraising. And that's something universities do, but it's a topic I know very little about personally. And I've gained some great insights relevant to my own university, listening to both the fundraising teams from Bletchley Park and also V&A Dundee, who's I sit on their trustee board as well. And that again, you wouldn't particularly thought, but I certainly find it's useful when we talk about fundraising here at Abertay. And I think a final example is from when I was president of BCS, when I chaired the trustee board and steered the direction of travel for the organisation, helped to develop strategy and drive its implementation. And of course, that's something I now do as a vice chancellor of a university, but from the executive side of the fence, not the governing body side. So absolutely hugely valuable experience, I think, from both perspectives. But I think, these experiences will also demonstrate to your existing employer or future employers that others value you and they value your input. And I think it says a lot about you as an individual. My message to listeners would be to take those opportunities, as you never quite know where they might lead or what you might learn whilst giving back to others.
Yeah, I think that's some absolute brilliant advice there. It's that personal, professional growth that, like you say, sometimes when you're in an organisation, it can be hard to get those big projects or get those different perspectives and learn in different environments. Whereas putting yourself out there with your expertise to volunteer in different scenarios can only show what you're prepared to go and do and how you can learn. And there's no better way to learn than do it in a live environment. So being able to support some fantastic organisations as well along the way. So thank you for sharing that. And I hope that might give a few people thinking about what does 2025 hold for them. Actually, maybe looking at a volunteering opportunity might be something that they might think would be good for them. I know as part of your qualifications that you have, and I know you have many different qualifications, one of those is you are a chartered IT professional yourself. Would you be able to explain the significance of CITP registration? And we're particularly interested in how it helps validate both technical skills and I suppose that ethical standards within the industry is quite important to some organisations.
Yes, so as you said, becoming a chartered IT professional, it does certify both your technical expertise, but also your professional behaviours, which does include ethics. So, in terms of technical expertise, it verifies that you've got sort of a depth of knowledge in a particular area, but also a breadth of knowledge, and those are certified to certain levels. So I think that can be really helpful for a hiring employer to know sort of what someone else has certified about your expertise and skills. But it also recognizes leadership skills and ability to analyze and solve complex problems and make effective decisions. So I think it says a huge amount about you as an individual. But in terms of your professional behaviors, in becoming CITP, individuals will have committed to keeping their skills up to date, to acting as a role model and understanding the ethical implications of their work, which I think in this era of artificial intelligence is a really important one. So, these days it also includes an understanding of sustainability, which is really important, equality, diversity, inclusion. And the long-standing one that BCS has always championed is legal, social, and professional issues. So I think it says a huge amount about an individual, and is therefore valuable to both the employer and the employee.
You mentioned it there. AI is just going to change the way that technology has been done for forevermore. It is going to be a different landscape that we're moving into. And I think in light of recent kind of tech industry challenges that have come up and challenges that are going to come ahead, I think BCS are forever advocating for that stronger professional standard, like you said, just to make sure that it's that verification that someone has gone above and beyond to make sure that they have kind of qualified who they are and their technical expertise. How do you see CITP registration in the future potentially contributing towards a better self-regulation within the tech industry?
Yeah, I mean, I think CITP is becoming more and more important as technology use becomes more prevalent in society, for both personal use and for work. And as I said earlier, it brings with it a lot more risks, as we essentially hand over a lot more control to technology. So, CITP essentially establishes a benchmark for people's competence, ethics, professionalism, and that's something you can use to hold professionals to account. So hopefully it should enhance public trust in IT professionals. And as you said, given the regular IT failures that hit the press, for example, the Horizon Post Office scandal, if you have chartered professionals engaged at all levels, at least you know that people are delivering the systems, are at the leading edge of their practice and embody ethical behaviors. That said, there is a potential further step which has been discussed for many years, which not yet implemented, but that's looking at a license to practice model, which we see in many professions. For example, civil engineering. In the same way that we have confidence in a civil engineer that they can design and build a bridge that won't collapse, we need to be equally confident in the development of IT systems, especially when lives are at stake in areas such as healthcare. And also when we hire cybersecurity professionals, it's important that IT developers hold themselves to the highest technical and ethical standards, which is why CITP registration is so important. And I think that the industry needs to embrace it at all levels in order to hold itself to account.
Yeah, couldn't agree with you more. And I think, you mentioned there like the Horizon scandal. There's obviously emerging technologies. You've already mentioned AI, and that is going to have a growing impact on how we operate as businesses, how we operate as individuals. AI is going to come into every facet of our lives. How do you see the role of professional bodies like the BCS in being more involved to ensure that those innovations come with a level of responsibility involved as well?
Yeah, I mean, I see professional bodies and BCS very much in the lead. I think they need to be enabling discussions and working with other bodies to set not only the technical standards, but the behavioral and ethical ones as well. So, I briefly mentioned before legal, social, ethical, and professional issues that have been at the heart of BCS standards, and that includes for degree accreditation as well for a very long time. So, BCS has a role in ensuring all its members and chartered professionals are up to date and continue their CPD commitments. And they have a tremendous amount of support on offer to help all the professionals to do that. But, another key role which BCS I think does incredibly well is their engagement with education. And that's at all levels. From school, they have the amazing, Computing at School network, which I don't know how many thousands of professionals they had, but it was somewhere around 30,000 last I looked, and it's probably much higher. But they work all the way through to higher education and CPD for industry. So it's not just computing professionals who need education, given the growing prevalence of technology in society. It's vital that the public is also taught about technology to ensure they understand what responsible use is and ethical use and how to manage the technology to do that. But of course, as AI evolves, advice will need to be updated regularly, and that is a challenge. But of course, being in the tech sector, BCS are highly skilled in adapting to rapid change, so I've every confidence they can do that.
Definitely, and I think that is the where we're at now. It is that rapid change. What was hot last year is just going to be completely different this year, and it's going to be that constant evolution. So I think the likes of regulation bodies keeping everything up to date and keeping everybody up to date to the most top standards, I think is going to be quite vital as we progress forward. I'd like to delve a little bit further into career development and advice that you might be able to give to those listening in about kind of where they might be looking to take their careers. Your career path shows how professional development can lead to leadership roles within the academia space and obviously within the volunteering roles that you've done as well. For our listeners who are earlier on in their careers, what specific steps or advice would you recommend they take to start their professional certification journey?
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, I just recommend joining the BCS if you're not a member, and engage with your local branch. I think they're around 50 branches across the country, so hopefully there shouldn't be one too far away. But also engage with their specialist groups, because they have groups, interest groups in certain areas like artificial intelligence or cybersecurity, and all of those will host regular events that will be of interest to you, enable you to meet other people and share best practice. But you don't have to become a member to start engaging with BCS activities. Many events and meetings are open to non-members. But if you do become a member, there's a huge range of support, from CPD content, online courses, mentoring, certifications. There's access to a huge library as well, support for personal development plans, and masses more I don't have time to list, but it's all on their website. And I know they'll be absolutely delighted to answer any questions if people got in touch.
Perfect. And I think that's the key part of it. You don't have to invest lots of money up front. You can try it out. You can get involved in some of the networks. And I think for a lot of people, what I always say for those starting out in their journeys is start to build that network, work on who it is that within the industry that might be able to help you as you continue your career growth, and get involved and get involved in the different events that go on. Um, Obviously, I mentioned before that you are CITP certified. Could you share an example of how your CITP certification has maybe benefited you in your career so far?
Yeah, in truth, it's hard to come up with a specific example because people wouldn't necessarily call it out as something. But I think the external recognition of your achievements and the ethical approach is hugely valued by employers as a validation of your skills, knowledge, ethics, professional behaviors. And this is definitely true within academia, which is essentially where I've spent my career. It's not uncommon to see professional recognition as a required or desirable achievement on criteria for job applications. That's certainly something we look for here at Abertay University when we hire people for both IT service careers and academics, in common with many other universities. So we consider it valuable, as I know many employers do. So I think also, having undertaken almost a separate additional career in addition to my day job through my external engagements, I'm really confident that the chartered status has been recognised by others and valued. So I'd encourage people to embrace it.
Brilliant. I think you're right. I think it's that competitive advantage that you can give yourself by giving yourself that certification and that commitment to your industry, to the job that you do. From your experience of mentoring others, what misconceptions do you think people have around professional registration?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. From my experience, I'm not sure I've come across specific misconceptions as such. It's more about being a lack of knowledge and understanding about what chartered status and CITP represents. So I think, given the era we're in, employing people who have committed to stay up to date, signed a code of conduct which endorses a person's integrity and ensures they're committed to working in the public interest and accepting their professional duty and responsibilities. I think that's incredibly important and really has to be highly valued in this rapidly changing world. So key to this is getting the message out there that employing a chartered professional says something about the person you're employing. And what it says is that you bring a lot more to a job than just the technical skills and experience that you hired that person for, and that's really valuable.
We're right at the end of the show now, and as someone who's shaped educational standards and professional frameworks globally, what do you see as the biggest challenges and opportunities for the tech industry in the next 5 years, and how crucial will professional bodies like BCS be in addressing these challenges?
Yeah, so I don't think an answer could exclude artificial intelligence, which is rapidly going to transform our work and personal lives, and in ways that I think we can't yet conceive. I think the biggest opportunities from this are for us to do things differently and more rapidly and more accurately than we have done in the past. But of course, AI does bring with it just as many risks and challenges. But I am hugely passionate about what I think AI will deliver us for the future. As I said, I'm not under any illusions about the risks and difficulties it brings with it. But perhaps I could give you a small example from what we're doing here at Abertay University, and where we are on our journey and what our ambitions are in one area for the application of AI. So we started our AI journey a little while back, but a typical application, a typical first application in many universities is to train AI to try and answer some of those student queries. And in the past, you had to think of questions and script dialogues, and it took months to do. And now you can just point AI at your data and it kind of works it all out. And I'm obviously making a rather simplistic statement here. It's not quite as simple as that. But compared to how you used to have to do it, it's absolutely transformational, and can then have that, those bots can then have that conversation with students. But I think moving forward in the education space, artificial intelligence is set to absolutely transform how students learn, how academics teach, how academics conduct research. And I think it's largely going to be a companion that looks after you, brainstorms solutions with you, helps you analyze data, it'll tutor you when necessary. It'll help you consume information and learn in a way that's tailored to your preferences. I mean, the potential is absolutely endless. So, however, as I alluded to, there are many challenges with AI. For example, its ability to explain its thinking isn't great. It has security and ethical issues. There's bias in training sets, and we've got to make sure that all those are addressed. But longer term issues, which I'm not sure many people think about, I'd just like to sort of plant a seed, is if we all continue to use a few of the key large language models that are all kind of trained on similar data, you have to ask yourself, well, will they all start to give us similar advice? And does that mean we'll all start to think alike? Which could be really dangerous. But the final one that worries me for the future is whether we would all start to get lazy and just accept what AI proposes as the answer. Oh, that seems good enough, I'll just run with it. And sometimes I can sort of see myself doing that a little, which scares me. Because that means we don't have to sit down and do that really hard thinking ourselves. And we have to ask, what will that mean for us cognitively and our thinking abilities going forward? Let alone the potential impact across society if you haven't sort of got proper checks and balances. So whilst the opportunities are huge, I think the challenges are equally huge. And how society embraces AI and uses it, I think, will be absolutely critical to our future. So back to your original question, how crucial will professional bodies be in all of this? My view is they're absolutely vital. If professional bodies like the BCS are not seen to be in the lead, then who is? And who do we trust? Who's actually steering that journey? So my view is that BCS must take a lead on this and be at the heart of the debate, and I'm absolutely confident they will do that brilliantly.
We're right at the end of the session. I've really enjoyed chatting to you today. I think your insights and your experience has been invaluable. So, Liz, thank you so much for being part of this episode. It's been great having you on board.
Delighted to be so. Thank you very much for inviting me once again. It's been fascinating. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. And to our listeners, if you're interested in learning more about CITP registration or getting involved with the BCS, please do visit them at bcs.org, and their details will be shared in the show notes, along with Liz's contact details as well via LinkedIn, should you want to reach out and ask any questions to her. Thank you very much.